If I had to give you one particular policy change that had a dramatic effect more than any other, I think the font from which much of this emerges, it was the legislation of no-fault divorce laws in the 1970s, which created the regime, or greatly stimulated the process of single-parent homes, and therefore of the entree of government machinery into the private household. And the creation of neighborhoods of crime, substance abuse, and more recently, I think of terrorism, single-parent homes, not just of individual homes, but of entire communities like this. So that's very brief, but I measured against this, I think the current Polish family policy, and this is my knowledge of this comes entirely from last year's Ordo Juris report, so you have to forgive me if I'm not, if I make factual mistakes, but this is where I'm basing my analysis. But I think in many ways the current policies of the Polish government over the last 2 years are ambiguous. On the one hand, Poland is a self-identified Christian country, and clearly these policies are intended to strengthen and reinforce the family. It's also true, however, that family policy often has unintended consequences, and that certain measures can be reinterpreted and channeled in ways that are not necessarily intended. Measures devoted specifically to strengthening motherhood, for example, seem unexceptionable, and they're very good. On the other hand, the trend towards single motherhood is something that does not need to be encouraged. If anything, Western societies are increasingly recognizing the importance of fatherhood, and certainly the two-parent family together, and perhaps especially the fatherhood. It is fatherlessness that accounts more than anything for the social pathologies that we see in the Western world, especially, that I just outlined. Likewise, the Polish government's aim to increase the fertility rate is likewise laudable. But again, it's only a small part of a much larger problem that I think needs to be attacked at its entirety, rather than simply providing financial incentives for more children. Again, we don't need financial incentives for more single parents. We have many financial incentives for that already. We need incentives for married parenthood. And that's going to be a little more challenged than just providing financial incentives, I think. Likewise, I think that, again, the Polish government's emphasis on parental rights is striking and very inspiring. And I hope other governments will follow this. But I think it's very limited as it is now. It's mostly aimed at, seems to be, to me, aimed at preventing children from being removed from their families because of reasons of poverty. But poverty is only one reason the children are unjustly removed from their homes and their parents. Much more frequent reasons are unjust accusations of child abuse, unjust homeschooling, unjust divorce procedures, all of which, by the way, may be undergirded or reinforced by violations of religious freedom and religious discrimination. The Benariu case is, again, a good example of all of that. So poverty is important, but when you have two-parent families together anyway, generally the problem of poverty doesn't exist. It goes away, which of course is desirable for its own sake. So the poverty issue is important, but the two-parent family is the best solution for that. I could also comment to you about childcare and some others, which again can have good consequences and perhaps sometimes not so good consequences.